You could have heard this episode 48 hours early on our Patreon, patreon.com/indieheadspodcast. But join us for as low as $1 a month, you'll receive episodes early and gain access to our Discord server. All our upcoming episodes will be on our Patreon 48 hours before it hits our public podcast feeds. But if you're hearing this via our Patreon feed, we thank you so much for your support. We especially want to thank our Real Ones patrons, including Beckett Tien, Roger Mikowski, James Boss, Holiday Kirk, Tyler, Marcy Anime, Chance Holdup, Delaney Mothman, Josiah Duncan, Jenna, Matt Cameron, Grant in the Back of My Dracula, Pablo Escobar's Hippos, Jackson Chris, Jeremy Bull, JP, Matthew Taylor, Breen Hare, Drew Wharton, I Like Books, Sarah Moore, Max Kapazinski, Mark Barry, Cal50, The PP Poo Poo Fairy, Chris Wade, Midwest Maxwell, Kevin John, Jake Wald, Keep Autism Weird, Rob Marino, Max, Dylan, Zach, Kevin 490 Freak, and Maze Farms. To become a real one, consider supporting us for $5 a month on Patreon. We'll receive a bonus episode every month and get a shout out at the top of the pod. Anyways, though, enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a special edition of the Indieheads podcast. I'm your host, Matty, aka, well, I was going to say I'm Van Prince on Twitter, but who knows? Twitter's going to be up by the time this podcast goes up. It's Matty. I'm here.
You better be Monrovian Prince on Blue Sky. If anyone takes Monrovian Prince from Matty, we're gonna fight you. Don't do it.
Are we still doing Mastodon? Is that one of the other ones?
No, Mastodon is the worst. There's literally a joke
over.
today about how Mastodon is like, okay, welcome to Mastodon. Now, if you want to follow someone, you type command / underscore, and then you have to type in their PIN number. It's important to memorize these. Like, it's like overly complicated to the point of like you have to have a coding degree to use it. Like,
Lord.
So no, we're not.
So what I'm hearing is now is the perfect time to invest.
People are doing yeah.
Rose is going to be the one who fixes Blue Sky personally.
I'm going to fix Listen, I'm going to fix the whole internet. I've got a 10-stage plan laid out. It's going to be great.
Mastodon is going to become part of the 100.
That's actually what this episode
is.
Yes,
exactly. You're
I mean, if we're talking about Mission Impossible like we were before we started recording, we're just all got to go back to Usenet.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, no. So speaking of that, I just want to point out something that I saw in the movie last night. So I was sitting there watching the movie, and I had a moment of just like utter awe when Tom Cruise types in max.com and gets no results. And I'm just like, man, he's living the exact same experience that I do every Sunday when I try to watch Righteous Gemstones.
Oh god damn.
I'm like, man, this website doesn't work.
Oh my god. Anyways, I'm here, Lily's here, Natalie's here, Jackie's here, Rose is here. We're going to talk about our top 10s, our all individual top 10s of the year so far, and also they're going to try to force femme me. It's going to they've tried many times.
Always happens.
I was trying to think of like what the proper analogy for the energy on these episodes is, and I think when it's all four of us plus you, it's just like when a human shows up on Sesame Street. Just like kind of there.
This experience
really, I cannot escape the Sesame Street character allegations. No matter how many analogies you make, I end up being one. I'm just like, okay.
Really, this experience is like,
at least.
Yes, I know.
Really, this experience is going to be like each one of these numbers. Matty has like one of 5 cups in front of him. 4 of them have been spiked with estradiol. 1 of them has not. You have to choose wisely, Matty.
Anyways, let's get into it. We're gonna start with my list. You know, that's okay if I can start with my list. You know, we're starting with my number 10. So we're gonna all go through our top 10s one at a time. Each spot on the list. We've got some repeats on some of our lists, so we'll kind of.
I think there's a good amount of consensus this year, although, as we've talked about, and we'll get to, a lot of us picking number ones that no one else has on their list. So that's,
yeah, I'm going to say there's a refreshing...
Except for one person. There's one person that's an exception.
But that, yes, that's true.
Aside from that one, yes. But
overall, a refreshing lack of overlap on our lists, I will say. Like, it's nice when we all have a consensus, when we have like a 2021 where we just sort of Trojan horse one of our guys right to the top, but like, the fact that it's a wide open field this year, I feel like, you know, is kind of
it's a good
better overall.
My assessment of this year, I don't know, we can give all of our feelings about just like basically where I was at this year was that I had a couple of records that I really, really loved early in the year, including a couple that I heard before this year even started. Where it's like I knew I had records I liked this year, but it was a very like top heavy thin field for a while, and then all of a sudden I'm like, how do I put 10 records in? Like all of a sudden it got really crowded.
My relationship with this year is that I listened to 12 records and we're about to talk about 10 of them.
I love that for you.
Meanwhile, mine was very much like just full on throttling Natalie core bullshit. When list season came around at the midpoint of this year and people were asking me for my lists, I think I had like maybe a top 20 and that was it. And that was primarily like what I was listening to, because I have a nasty habit of just running back the same fucking albums like all the time. So this is a good collection of what I have worn out the entire year.
My experience is very fun because I spent the first 5 months of the year mostly not listening to new stuff other than like 2 albums I got advances on, and I was like, yeah, these are pretty good. Like it's just like I was just on they won for me by default because like they were both records I was really excited for anyway. And then like finally like I would only peek out of my hole occasionally to like from listening to like 200 records that are not from this year. Because I'm a goddarn freak. And then, like, eventually, like, I was, like, finally ready to start with music again. And I was like, okay, let's go. And then I look at the calendar. It's like, oh, I'm getting my head operated on next week. I don't have time to listen to new music. And so then I finally recovered for real. And this last week has been like, oh, God, I gotta get in the list. I gotta get in the list now.
The panic is real. Let's not understate this. I felt this too when I like binged close to 50 albums in a single week, and apologies to many of those, because binging albums is not the way to like try to get things into your brain.
No, it isn't. But like I found the ones I knew I was going to come back to again,
exactly.
At least, and so I operated off common sense for myself.
Same. 2 of my 10 that I came up with for this list were 2 that I binged in that period, and I'm glad that I got around to them, because otherwise my 10 would have been kind of a little lopsided.
Well, yeah. Let's fucking get into it. My number 10 on my list, which, by the way, if you want to hear me talk about some of these records more in depth and play some of my favorite tracks off them, hey, patreon.com/Indieheads podcast. I did a little album of the year, song of the year radio show special where I talked about all 10 of my records and also a few other songs and artists of that sort. Anyways, my number 10, 100 Gex, 10,000 Gex, which I am genuinely surprised is in my top 10. It technically is not, because there's a record that's not out yet that's in my 10, but we're gonna move past that. Number 10, Gex, 10,000 Gex. I'm surprised because if you asked me about a year or 2 ago, I would have just straight up told you, oh yeah, the new Gex album, it's probably going to be a dud. Like, just I don't think they have it anymore. Like, they took way too long on it. Like, some of the new stuff I've heard is not that great. Like, I didn't like Me, Doritos and Fritos at the time. I wasn't really into, and I was just like, didn't really care for the EP, and I was like, yeah, this band's just gonna drop a dud. It is what it is. It's sad, but
100 Gex is going to drop a brick, and it's gonna hurt.
But they did not do that. In fact, they dropped a really, really good record that is very fun, and I think was the right pivot of, the thing that I think people were worried about Gex was like, oh, their first record, it was so innovative, and it was such a at the time, like, no one was doing that. And of course now, 4 or 5 years later, there's so much hyperpop and just pop music that's been informed by that record. And instead of, trying to one up themselves in that way, they're just going to shit post through it. And I think that was the completely right move, because it makes for a very good and charming record. It's a great pop record. It's very funny. It's even though every now and then, there's a little bit moment, there's moments of like genuine feelings and sort of like something breaks through the noise, but for the most part it's just relentless shit posting over like really good pop songwriting, and I think that works really well to its benefit.
I'm so happy you picked this because it was the similar maybe surprise of the year for me, and the record that I'm just like, fuck, like how did I, because I never liked the first record as much as most people, I would say. Like, I'm not someone that was like a massive stan, so like the fact that I came into this record with a similar skepticism and like love it so much that it came very close to making my 10, I think is very impressive. also just like the most wanted person in the United States is going to be very, very, very high on my song of the year list, and I'm not.
It's so good.
Remotely ashamed about it because they made a Krayshawn song produced by Inspector Gadget and the ghost of the guy from Sublime. Like, it's beautiful. I love it so much. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, because you start off with like Dumbest Girl Alive and 757, which are very
so
like they're Gex songs. Great songs to open
Dumbest
with. You
Girl
have Hollywood
Alive,
Baby.
though, is them being like, we have a major label budget and we are going to choose to use it on the stupidest things possible immediately. And
great mission
fucking
statement song.
the
Yeah.
PHX sample into which Rihanna, by the way, did a great interview with them for Switch on Pop, where they said that they got sent the full raw audio file of the PHX sample, and it's like 4 terabytes. It's like some
Wow, that really is a deep noise, just like the name implies.
It's some crazy amount of data that it takes up, and I love that, and I love that's like what they do with this record, because I think it's the way that they sidestep like the anticipation game of like, how do you follow something up? It's you intentionally deflate the high stakesiness of it by making it so relentlessly fun and relentlessly like silly and enjoyable.
Yes.
I mean, we didn't mention with Dumbest Girl Alive. Fucking the sicko mode like sub bass synth noise throughout. That's hilarious. Frog on the floor, all the ribbits, and just it's so stupid. Like, the thing is, this record is that it is stupid in the best way possible. It is like, turn your brain off and just like vibe with like this weird frequency that this band is on. You know, like, you got new metal, you got your kind of classic Gex hyperpop, you have weird like basic rap, like most of the person in the United States, like, oh, we have the Cypress Hill sample and fucking Scary Movie samples. And then Tooth Remove, which is, you know, occasionally launches into like this sort of dramatic, like Joji kind of ballad before going straight back into like ska punk. It's, again, this is a wonderful record.
It is not a perfect record, but I think the thing that makes it really great is that this is a tweet I did, but it's like, everyone agrees that like 7 songs in this record are genius and 3 of them are like stupid in a way that you don't like to listen to, but no one can agree what those 3 songs are. Like, everyone will tell you, oh, the one annoying song is blank. Like, some people like hate Frog on the Floor with a passion, and that over time has come very close to being my favorite song on the record because it's so fucking sweet and wholesome and catchy, and like, I don't know, I love it. He was telling Croaks at the party. What else do you want to say? Like,
excuse me, I've just gotten word that the Floor Frog has been canceled, so you really should watch what you say about it.
Milkshake Frog. No.
Now, I'm also hearing reports that I got Anthony Kiedis sucking on my penis.
Oh,
we should
address. You have to imagine Anthony Kiedis loves that so much, is just thrilled by it, by the inspiration that he's given to a new generation.
I genuinely wonder if he's heard that song. You know, just like, wait, what are the odds, you think, on this? Because it's like very clear.
They honestly, given how long the gestation period of this album was and how many legal clearances they had to do, I would not be surprised if they ran that by him.
I can imagine
I'm just imagining like a bunch of lawyers coming in, like, you know, just walking into the office. They like sit down in front of Anthony with a briefcase. They open it up, and there's just a CD in there, and then they put it in a little speaker, and they're just like, "Okay, Anthony, we want you to hear this line. It's very important to us. You need to hear it so we can give the A-okay for these guys." And then he just goes,
he puts his penis sock back on out of respect.
I think that line does overshadow, though, my other favorite line on that song and maybe on the album is when Laura, in what I've described as the best Kitty Pryde verse that Kitty Pryde never delivered, says, "Everybody shut the fuck up when I'm cussing," which is just such a great line. I love it. So everyone shuts the fuck up when I'm cussing.
I just can't get over the bit where like it just suddenly breaks into a chorus and you're just like, yes, is it hot like that? Yeah, it's hot like that.
It's the dumbest thing possible.
I mean, like, I have not come back to this record at all because like I think ultimately I'm just like, yeah, the novelty on most of the ones I like kind of wore out, but like that one I'm still like, yeah, dude, that kind of rules. just bizarre little tune to just throw onto your record, and yeah, I don't know if we have any more to say, but
We're done.
Yeah, if we're gonna move on, I would love to do mine next, just because it extends into a rant that I
You're
have.
next. Well,
you are next, Rez.
But your next is also on my list. So
I wasn't even referring to that one. I was referring to the one that like we were skipping.
We're gonna go back to that when we get.
Yeah,
to
that's
mine.
what I'm saying. Like right now, number 10 on my list, Sword 2, Spirit World Tour. I'm gonna talk about that later. But number 9 for now, the one I do want to talk about, is a record that I had a very hard time getting a hold of, which is very funny because like it gets into a subject that I wanted to filibuster about briefly, which is that I think American hyperpop is mostly creatively bankrupt right now. I've said this before, I think, but like I just have no fucking interest in whatever's going on, like that bothers to actually intentionally use the name of the genre to market itself right now in America, is just because it's just so boring. Like every time I look, it's like Frost Children. What is this? Oh my god! I just hear some stuff. And I'm just like, this is trash, dude. We just stopped trying. We just stopped trying. But let me tell you, I am. This gets into the second half of the filibuster, which is where I talk about a very lovely place called This Side of Japan by Ryo Miyachi, which is maybe the only non-creatively bankrupt newsletter left on Substack. It's just Ryo just curates a really good list of music that is coming out of Japan. And if I had something like this for every like region of the world, I would probably be just like, yeah, dude, everything is great. But instead, I'm just like specializing in this. And I just found out in the last year or so that like Japanese hyperpop scene, like kind of sick. Like there's just a whole load of names that like you have to really search for. They're not even on like SoulSeek for me to find. Like I usually have to bother people on like the one Discord server I'm in that cares about this kind of thing and be like, hey, you guys have MP3s? And it's just like, yeah, names like Asaki, who's like spelled out like 4S4KI, really good. Killer Neverland, highly recommend. Amane Uyama, Ami, which is like a bunch of A's and then a bunch of Y's in there, but it is spelled like Amy, but just, you know, with that variant. And then finally, this record right here, which is by Pastasta, which is, you know, you say it like pasta, but it's Pastasta. It's 2 words. I have not looked into the significance of this name, but they made a record called Good Pop, and let me tell you, folks, the title don't lie. It's really good hyperpop that just like focuses in on about like 23 or so minutes of material, I want to say, but it's just like, you know, they're going all in on the tightest songwriting I can imagine for something that's like so interested in like that genre fusion stuff that like I find is to be the original wellspring of like what makes hyperpop good in the first place, is like, you know, just being able to ricochet off 5 different sounds and make something interesting. Like track 3, Peanut Phenomenon, goes through just so many different ideas at once of just like, oh, here's a simple little like auto-tune groove with a big punchy beat, you know, and then it'll kick into like a really kind of like almost happy hardcore-ish beat, and you're just like, yes, this has ideas going on every second, and it never loses momentum in it, which is, you know, for me, the primary appeal of it. It's just, and I want to hear more like this. It's just frustrating to know, like, oh yeah, there's a whole scene of like people doing this way better, and it's impossible to hear because like we cannot seem to get music from other countries that easily in America.
I really appreciate this recommendation in this rant, but I have been distracted for the last minute or so just gazing upon the name of the featured artist, Peter Parker 69.
No, yeah, that's it's just there in the middle. I'm just like, yeah, sure.
Shout out to Peter Parker 69.
What can you say?
All one word, of course.
Yes, they contributed a great deal to this.
Also, I like there's a song called Turtle Thief, and it's just a good song title.
Yeah, there's nothing but good song titles on here. River Relief, Finger Frame, Peanut Phenomenon, Zip Zapper. I just like Zip Zapper, because like, what are you gonna do? Zip Zapper. just good advice. Like I don't need to know what it means. It gets the people going, you know, like Will Ferrell says in that movie, the movie.
Yeah, I do like the very like polygon art of it. It's very like so basic that it's like avant-garde. You know what I mean?
You don't need to say much more. It's good pop. Like
it looks kind of like the I'm a fire in my laser guy.
Oh God. Oh my God! Now I'm not gonna be able to get that out of my head.
I ruined it for you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's my rant. I just mostly wanted to rant because like I find like this is one I got to after like 5 months of people that I know like bugging me about and just being like, you gotta hear that Pastasa record. I'm just like, I'll get to it.
Well then, Natalie, your number 10.
Yeah, my number 10 is Shook, the new album by Algiers, which if folks are familiar with my taste, they know I've been like an Algiers stan from like day one. However, like last album, There Is No Year, if I speak, I'm in big trouble because I do know them, but let's just say this is a very big bounce back from the group and kind of like very much so what I've like really dug from them. It kind of sidelines a lot of the like post-punk sound that they were kind of wearing out at this point, and they've like gone really hard into the kind of like punk rap mixtape mode, which is like sick as hell. They have like Billy Woods and Backwash features. They got fucking like Zach de la Rocha, like the first fucking like main single that's like on the album. It's just they loaded it like chock full of these features, but it doesn't feel like disjointed. It feels very much like this like kind of weird collective experience. In a lot of ways, it kind of reminds me of what didn't make my 10, but the Hers Collective were doing with like their album from this year, where they just like got all these people with this like same collective idea of like what the album is about and what the sounds are, and just really kind of run from it from there. And it's I think it's sick as hell that a band like this can pull off these kinds of like buzzsaw guitars and like rap verses and like very sort of like moody, almost kind of like horrorcore synth noises in a way that doesn't feel too far divorced from where they are, but also feels like the kind of like forward thinking leap they kind of needed to make in order to not like spin their wheels too long, which was looking like it was going to possibly be a thing. So I'm like, a lot of it has been just their ability to rebound is like a big reason why I've thrown it on here. And it's also just a very kind of, before we started recording, we were talking about like the ability to throw on albums. This is one where it's like, I'll get to it with like one of the albums that I have later on, but this is a good one to where I'll just like think about a single run here. Like, the run that's Bite Back into Out of Style Tragedy, which is just like an insane 1-2 of this kind of like moody, like horrorcore rap almost, that then kind of morphs into this like insane spoken word track that also samples the Howard Dean scream. It's this like it's very easy for me to like, given how daunting this like track list is, just to like run back like little selections and kind of let it run its course until I've like had enough. And that's kind of it makes it for a really compelling experience to like listen to in chunks or in full. I also want to shout out the really, really sick actual mixtape that came from this album. It is called Shook Worlds. And it's basically the way that it worked was they handed off the stems and let it get like remixed and reworked by like a whole bunch of other people, specifically in like New York circles, who like didn't really like touch the album or like were in connection. There's like a really fucking great Dream Crusher bit on there specifically.
Yeah, no, I think Shook World by King Vision Ultra is like a really good companion piece to this, especially because like it does so much interesting, weird little stuff with sampling. Like there's one song I want to shout out on there that is really funny.
Oh, it's okay. So I wanted to shout out while you were finding that, specifically Paper Chase with Dream Crusher samples fucking Paper Planes. And like they were playing it in the venue when I was going to see them like in full. And I was just like on my phone, like half listening to it, half absorbing it. I was like, is this fucking paper planes happening like right now with Dream Crusher over it.
Yeah, no,
which is like the sickest shit.
It's very funny, and just like there's so many of these that just like it's a weird little like deconstructive mixtape that I think is super interesting just as a companion work, because like this is an album that I respect more than I like at this point, I think. Like I realized generally that like I like the ideas going on it, but just like as a whole, I'm just like, yeah, I can't sit through this in one sitting. It's just not fully my thing for the full runtime. But I do love what they're doing with it. Like they take a lot of bounds and leaps, which really, really benefit them. Like I really love Green Iris in the middle of here, just being on a record that's like mostly very aggressive. They go for something so much more interesting sounding. Like
yeah, Green Iris is also really cool because it's like one of those tracks where a lot of these kind of have a much more immediate sound to them, sometimes just because of that like punk influence. Like you think of something like Irreversible Damage, which just basically like starts by like throttling the red and kind of just stays there the entire track. But like Green Iris is really cool because it's this very kind of like almost somber reflective track for like 4 minutes, and then it just kind of like suddenly explodes into all of this like emotion that's just been bubbling under the surface.
Yeah, it's just that like all of it. Like the thing I will get this credit for is like the whole thing is so well structured, both on like, you know, moment to moment basis within the songs, and then as a whole, it's just like this is a good, well structured record. They thought about how to really build this together, and I think that works to its benefit because like it's really trying to be something deeply self-rooted. Like it is very clearly a tribute to both, you know, like their inspirations in experimental music, like, you know, like you get like Backwash and DeForest Brown and Patrick Shirawishi, who is now a new member of the Armed. I feel the need to shout that out just because it's very funny.
Exactly. He's not only the busiest man in fucking jazz, new jazz saxophoning, but he's also like in the Armed and playing in Algiers. Like the man is just busy.
Yeah, it's just, and then also like a tribute to Atlanta rap as a whole. You know, like you get Big Rube to do a spoken word guest verse. Like you get Zach De La Rocha. It just feels like a very honest tribute to like Atlanta and the culture of that place as a whole, which I really appreciate because like, hey, we need more records.
We'll get to again later in this episode too.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I also like I found it. I really want to shout out the song on Shook World, which is called "Please Leave New Surveillance State Gentrifier Tears." it features just a bunch of samples of just like people like who were trying to like sell off shitty apartments in New York for way too much money, crying. It's just like,
hell yes,
it's so much fun just listening to that.
Beautiful.
Being like, yeah, you guys deserve that.
Yeah, it's this album, I think, also that gets to my point with this and Shook World, which is that one of the great things that this album kind of refines is that Algiers and a lot of people in their network can kind of have fun with it, like that being an example. Like the Howard Dean scream basically just almost kind of sounds like a shit post that somebody made, because it's like Frankie the vocalist like is rattling off a bunch of political figures and hits Howard Dean, and you just hear in the background just like a faint like sample of the scream, and I like read it back, I was like, is that the fucking Howard Dean scream that's happening in this track right now? I similarly, like one of my favorite things on this album is the track toward the end, Something Wrong, which is starts off with this like fairly standard kind of like Matt Tong like backbone beat, and then Frankie just comes in and he's like, did I do something wrong? And then basically the entire track collapses and it becomes this like weird kind of broken like digitally morphed track that's happening at like 33% speed. And it's there are moments on this album that are like genuinely intentionally kind of funny, and it reminds me that like one of the things that like I've spoken to them about is like the act of like making music itself and bringing these people into the mix is genuinely a fun thing, which I'm like glad that this album really kind of centers, because it's like you can feel it just with how like what everybody is bringing to the project.
Oh
yeah, super fun more than anything.
I hate to be the one to bring this up because it just sets me up for disaster and people yelling at me because I inevitably will contribute to this problem. We need to go faster because we are half an hour into this episode. We haven't gotten through the 10s yet. So let's just like, I'm holding myself accountable by being the one saying this is what I'm doing, is what I'm trying to do.
Yes. Well then, Lily, what is your number 10 pick?
My number 10 is the new Hand Model album, Will Life Reign Supreme Even in Death? Not the debut Hand Model project, but crucially the Flenser debut for Hand Model, which is significant because Hand Model began as a side project. Now, possibly main project, of Ignat Friege, the drummer of Reckon Reference, a longtime Flenser mainstay who have been sort of one of the most compelling and forward-thinking metal acts the last 10 years, in my opinion. And the fact that this is coming out on the Flenser does seem to signal to me that Rec is maybe kind of like done for the time being for a variety of reasons, or at the very least, like heavily on the back burner. But that is perfectly fine by me because Hand Model, in lieu of us having to Reckon Reference albums, I think has been responsible for similarly some of the most forward thinking and compelling, and I think some of the music that speaks the most to the times of the 2020s that we've had to date. And this is very much continuing in that tradition. Hand Model, began with Manufactured Joy, which I would sort of contend is kind of my album of the decade right now. We'll see how that opinion holds up, but very much rose out of the move that Reckon Reference made on Absolute Still Life, away from more like as close as they ever got to like conventional metal instrumentation to fully just embracing electronic textures and beatworks and this kind of hip hop and spoken word influence. Hand Model sort of does away with all the metal and just like dives fully into that, and uses that as sort of the baseline texture for, in classic Ignat Friege fashion, generally just like some of the most dour and nihilistic and yet undeniably funny lyricism that there is out there right now. I was thinking like he has this thing of just once per album, he will drop the funniest / meanest thing you have ever heard. And it's kind of just undeniable. If I had 2 wishes after canceling your wishes, I would ask for more silence. Time is a piece of shit and it hates you. I want to make your president hamster wheel exercise and keeping yourself alive. That just to give people an idea of what the tone of the project is, which I admit is very much not for everyone, but very much is for me. And Will Life Reign Supreme Even in Death is pretty much just expanding on that tradition. It's not necessarily reinventing what Hand Model is, nor is it this kind of moment of like big budget arrival, but it's very much keeping the core of the project while pushing at the edges of it, adding in some live drumming back into the mix. I noticed that he's touring this album with a full band, which is a very, very interesting choice. Adding in some actual like clean singing as opposed to just spoken word, and also delving back further into, some sort of like noisier instrumentation. There are a couple moments, particularly I think it's Dust, where he just like cranks the distortion and the volume dial all the way up after a song that, has like a mostly very subdued instrumental and delivery. And it's very, very thrilling. It's more Hand Model. I don't need to say much more than that. You're either like in on this project or you're out. Although I do think that like this has sort of been one of the more overlooked discographies of recent years. I would very much urge people to either like check out this or Manufactured Joy. See if it's for you.
I would like to shout out the golden line on this record for me, which I thought you already know which one I'm gonna say, but running on fumes, I have anxiety, stuck in the trolley problem, and the CBD is letting me down. I think about that.
I mean, you don't get it anywhere else, folks.
You don't.
Yeah, you really don't. That's about all I have to say for this album. It's sitting at my 10 position just because it isn't quite up to the admittedly like absurdly high standards that the early couple Hand Model releases had, but also it's still a Hand Model project, so like it's making my 10. If you're in the mood for some like quirked up LA brained doom pilled white boy raps, just fucking look no further.
I have nothing to add to this, but I will shout out that this album in particular features singing from Nathan Berger, which is just a great name. But Nathan Berger is in the band Cave Diver, which Matty and I saw play live with the Flenser bands at Permanent Records Roadhouse, and they were very good. And they have an EP out now, I believe, called like Alone with Everything, I think is what it's called. Pretty good, like
something like that. Yeah,
kind of like this, but in more of a like slowcore direction, essentially.
Yeah, the front man was a touring member of Death Heaven for a couple years, so
I think so.
So it's sort of like a low key LA band, like super group at this point. Like there's a number of pretty like names, like that guy from this band, so on and so forth. But Jackie, What is your number 10 on your album of the year list so
Okay,
far?
my number 10 on my list is an album by the band called Death Crash, and the album is called Less. I believe I had them in my 10 last year. If they weren't, they were very, very close to it. But last year they put out a record called Return, which was this like long gestating, arguably overlong, but definitely sprawling debut record that was basically them like charting out the entire scope of their sound and influences and ideas. And then their second album, like the music writer narratives could not be more writing themselves, because their second album is called Less, and it is 37 minutes, which is like almost a third. I should do the exact math, but it is so much less time than the last record. And it's not like Death Crash has suddenly gone from being a slowcore band to being a pop punk ska band. They've gotten slower. It's just that they are now like so laser precise with what is on this record. I have had the pleasure, I got to hear this early, and I've heard the 2 B-sides that are not out yet, and both of them are so fucking good, but I really appreciate that they're not on the record, because this record, and I was talking about this before the podcast, after my year of long records last year, I don't know what's going on with my ADHD, even though I'm medicated now, like, whatever reason, I have a short attention span for records this year, partly because I've been listening to so much dance music, but, like, Death Crash, this record is so slow, but then so short in such a way that it is really replayable in the way that their last record isn't. And it really flows beautifully, and I think that there's so much restraint in this record. It's not like the last record didn't have, like, a lot of minimalism, but, right, like, there were a lot of moments on the last record where they would just kind of build to a crescendo because they could, you know? And, like, on this record, there are a lot of moments where they hold that back, and a lot of songs that that have these kind of slow burn, and then like Duffy's at the very end of it has this crescendo that kind of comes out of nowhere. But then on the next song, And Now I'm Lit, like you feel like it's like on the last record, it feels like that would have built to a big power chord guitar smash, and the drop on that song is basically the bass coming in really thick. Like it doesn't have the same like. It's not trying to create dynamics in the same way, because it's finding a way to create dynamics in smaller, subtler movements. And I also think that, like, the influence on American emo, and they talked about this in the press at this record, like, this is the record where they really lean into the fact that they are not just another British slowcore band, but they are a British slowcore band that really likes American emo, and, like, Braid and Rainer Maria and like American football, and like you can hear that in this record for sure. They're not just a Codeine, although they are now going to open for Codeine on tour, which is super cool for them. As someone who finally got to see Codeine play this year, like they are definitely playing on the same musical trick, which is like how if you can play so slowly, can you basically hypnotize the audience to this point where like they're hanging on every like pause between strums, and like that is the zone that they get to on this record. It's really, really beautiful and worth checking out if you like that sort of thing. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, let's again, the rotation has swung back to me. My number 9, which is going to be talked about later, so we're going to skip me. And Rose, just so this doesn't get unruly, we're going to skip you too, just so we can keep it consistent with the numbers. So we're going to swing it back to Natalie. Natalie, what is your number 9?
Yeah, number 9 for me, yet another Natalie Core mainstay, but Andy Schaaf with his new album Norm. Similar to Algiers, like Andy Schaaf was in a space where I kind of wasn't super taken with kind of where he was from, kind of where it seemed like he was perfecting his formula. You think about like his like very overt like concept storytelling albums like The Party and Neon Skyline, where he really kind of perfects this like matter of fact like folkish songwriting that feels very like Randy Newman-esque, where it feels very much like he's really invested in the fine details and this like very spare instrumentation that's also just like recorded to like perfect precision, like in terms of how it's like produced and engineered and mixed. Very, very much like a like studio musician's like musician. And those albums just felt like such a cohesive piece, and they also like throw so much of themselves at you so immediately that when I heard the advance of this one, I had really liked the single "Wasted on You," which opens the album, and a couple of tracks later on, and it mostly just kind of washed over me. And I was having a moment where I was like, "Oh no, is this another one where it feels like it's just kind of diminishing returns?" And just kind of filed it away. And a few months later, I was planning on seeing him and went back to this album and was reading several interviews that he was giving. Specifically, like, I want to shout out the Stereogum footnotes one where he goes through every track. Because this album is a concept album in some ways, but it's a very unintentional one. He went into it not planning to make it one, and it's this very dark, foreboding, probably his bleakest album, because it's all about the ways in which like someone's fate as a stalker is like preordained to like basically ripple through and destroy the lives of everybody around him by the forces of God. It doesn't show itself as such like quite immediately as every other album of his, but there's a lot of like really delicate and like specific and muted instrumentation that matches it, that on first listen kind of feels kind of lazy, almost kind of sedate, but you realize that it's there to kind of really get in this force of like creeping dread throughout it. So like the first time you listen to the album, it can feel very like slow and like almost kind of pleasant in a way, but it's a kind of a misdirection. And the more that you kind of absorb these like fine little details of the album, the more that like even the most like pleasant and like major key songs have this like very like unsettling aura to them, because for most of the album you were basically in the perspective of a stalker who may or may not end up killing somebody by the end of the album. And it's just, I think it's what seemed like his kind of simplest album kind of becomes very clever, because basically like you only get like 5% of whatever the story is here. There's a lot that's like unresolved at the end, and it kind of, the absence of details actually kind of becomes haunting. But yeah, that's really what I mostly wanted to say about this. When it gets into its later stretches and a lot of these like parallel storylines start clicking in with each other, and you have these kind of like very brief misconnections and periods of history there, it kind of just becomes very haunting. But yeah, wanted to shout this out, do it justice. I know that Zach was also, who was thinking of being on this, wanted me to shout this out too, so I wanted to give this a little sales pitch. If it doesn't click for you first time, give it some time, give it some space, read up on it, come back to it, and maybe it'll hook you like it kind of eventually got to me.
All right. Let's see. Lily, you're number 9. Of course, we're going to be talking about that one a little later, so we are going to skip you for now. Jackie, what is your number 9 pick?
My number 9 pick is a pick that I'm actually shocked that I'm the only person that has this on their 10.
Because I didn't spend enough time with it.
Oh, sorry. Well, then why is it not? Rose, are you looking? I'm talking about Feeble Little Horse.
Oh, wait, sorry. I got it mixed up with someone else's, I think, on the orders.
No, yeah, Rose, don't want to hem me.
Yeah, no, okay, I see what the problem is. I got mixed up because, like, yours is the only one that jumps onto a second page, so I was just like, oh, the bottom of this.
Okay. Yes, okay.
See, I try to get everything in one page, but it'd be maybe a little too small.
Horse,
anyways, number 9.
Girl with Fish. This is a really, really fucking great album. We don't need to talk a lot about their tour cancellation and that whole discourse, but Feeble Little Horse, good little band. It's the joke everyone's made. Whatever. They're really, really good, and this record, I think, solidifies and also builds upon everything that was so promising about Heyday. And just like, but Heyday was like this really, really fun record that has a couple of undeniable songs and a lot of really, really, really cool ideas, and this has like 7 or 8 or like 9 depending on who you're asking undeniable songs. It is just like a record that I put on, and every song I do the Michael Jackson "Oh I Love This Song" gif. Like, just every single time I'm just like, oh, Pocket, wow. Like, as if Pocket doesn't come on after healing every single time, you know? Like, there's something about it that is just so, like, it feels like eating candy, this record. But, like, also Oh, I think the most important thing I need to shout out this record, the line about how do you satisfy her if you're 5'2" and he's 6'5". Yes, the fucking short girl stealing tall men from women that actually need them. Yes, Kelly,
Yeah. Shout out to Delaney in the server. I understand getting defensive about that line as a 5'1" woman, but like, God, I appreciated the tall woman solidarity.
No, it's really great, and I think this record like is just the way that it is simultaneously so like precise in its songwriting, and yet both from the story around it and also from like the way that they put it together that it does. Like they've literally said that there are parts of the first record that they like recorded in the middle of a house party they were having at their own house. They like went into another room to record something. That's like how spur of the moment their creative process works, and you can feel that in their records. Like this just like, fuck, let's try this. And like you can also tell like this magic dynamic that comes from the fact that Kelly basically joined the band not knowing how to play her instrument at first, and also she writes the songs like separately from the rest from the band. There's like some kind of like, it's a melding of two processes together thing, that how they make these records. And I understand why they're putting the brakes, because they kind of want to preserve whatever this magic little thing that they've stumbled into essentially. But like I really hope that they I hope that they do whatever's best for them and their mental health in the band, but I hope we get more music like this, because fuck, it's so good. This is a really, really, really great record.
I would agree. It's a very, very good record. I'm not as in love with it as you are, but there's a lot of really good stuff here. Like, it's still a band that has a ton of upside, a ton of potential. I mean, my favorite on this record is Paces. I think that's just an incredible song.
That track fucks. That one's like basically you like deep fried like 90s cranberry song.
Hell yeah.
It's an excellent record. I also give it's not my 10, but I give it a very high recommendation. So let's swing it back. We're at my number 8. This is one that I'm both surprised and not surprised is the only one on my list. The new Model Actress album, Dog's Body. This is a record that I've been kind of on the fence about at certain points. The stuff that is good on this record is really fucking good. Like some of the best like dance punk industrial stuff I've heard in a minute. Like all the singles are incredible. Amareth, I'm gonna pull up the track list because I'm hungover, so my memory is not the best. Mosquito, Amareth, Crossing Guard, like these are tons of incredible singles. We have Pure Mode, fucking Donkey Show, Slate, like there's so many great tracks on here that are just like super high energy and a ton of fun and just viscerally exciting. But for some reason the band's also like, hey, we're gonna put some slow ones on here, which I get it for the pacing, but also like there's a part of me it's like we could just keep it up, you know, like we don't have to go like full on shoo like slow mode a little bit. Like we can keep the pace pretty high, but those are very minor complaints because those slow songs, they are needed, they are good. This is an excellent record, and if you have the chance to see this band live, go see this band live. It's a very, very fun show. The lead singer just goes out in the crowd and just terrorizes the crowd the entire show. It's great. If you are been I feel like we've mentioned this before on the podcast, but really good dance punk is really hard to come by because there's so much you have to do right to make it sound good. Like the production has to be on point, the instrumentation, the songs, the singing, like so much can go wrong with dance punk, but the stuff that's good on here is fucking great. Highly recommend. Rose, back to you. What is your number 8?
Hello, another artist that I have not really given out credit for previously in the past. Like, mostly just because I hadn't really listened to them. And this one kind of came at me by surprise because I'm normally not like a footwork type of guy. Like, it's not a genre that's ever really excited me because I'm just like, oh, it's just too complicated for my little baby brain. But, Flood City Tracks by Nandi. This is a real interesting one. Like, it's kind of doing a thing of fusion with like breakcore and also Detroit techno, and then also just like a lot of really sample heavy stuff that I just think is super interesting. It's just a very good electronic record that makes me go like, yeah, dude, there's something kind of going on here that I really like. It's just good stuff. Like it's one of the few that I can't really think of much more to say about it other than like great record, like Ringo does and Walk Hard.
I not to drag out this episode, but I do just want to shout out friend of the podcast Alexis, who is friends with Nandi and also DJ Girl, which are two records that are on my like 10 records on the outside looking in. Like, I love Flood City Tracks. I really love the DJ Girl album Hell Mode. If you haven't checked that out, really fun. Also, or Hell World. Hell Mode is the Jeff Rosenstock. Hell World is DJ Girl. That's right. But Flood City Tracks, I just want to shout out the concept of this record because I think it's so fascinating. Basically, Tatiana grew up in Jonestown, Pennsylvania. Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which is sometimes called Flood City because it has this like tragic history of deadly floods in like the 1800s, but then again in 1889, but then again in 1977, and the one in 77 just basically like crippled the town forever and is such that like this town just is like this sort of like semi-abandoned town that is stricken by a lot of poverty and a lot of it's basically like a cursed town in a certain way. But it's an album about that and the isolation of poverty and what it's like to live in a city like that. But it takes this like melancholic but not at all ambient approach to dance music. I've basically compared it to like it does for Footwork and Juke what Ski Mask Compro did for like breakbeat music. Like it brought back this style of like very very clearly inspired from like the classic Planet Mu Footwork stuff, RP Boo, etc. But then taking that in this complete other creative direction in terms of like what the emotional palette of it could be. And
thank you for taking the intellectual approach to this, so I didn't just come off here like, oh yeah, I just like the songs, because like I always do not have the historical context of any genre that's in the electronic family to be like, yes, this is really informed by this.
There's value in saying this shit slaps and knocks and fucks. I don't ever want to imply that you have to be
absolutely not. I didn't think you would, but I just wanted to say like I appreciate the contrast.
Yes, we need Tale of Two Cities. I mean, that's what our sort of sister podcast Hot Singles is like. It's just like Alexis gives this like beautiful soliloquy and Boo says the funniest thing you've ever heard. Anyways, let's move on.
Anyways, Natalie, your number 8 is on someone else's list a bit higher, so we're gonna skip over you. And then let's see. We're on to Lily. Lily, what is your number 8?
My number 8 is the new Tim Hecker album, No Highs. Listen, what do you need me to say? We all know Timmy. We all love him. The man doesn't sleep. He doesn't miss. Fucking post the Kobe picture. Like, he's keeping the run going. He's back in his Love Streams bag. Ostinatos are back. Sub bass kick drums are back. Colin Stetson's sexy, sexy fingers are back for the first time. It's another Tim Hecker album. He is very much on this one as well, I will say, based on the press around it. Like, I've seen the rumblings of some discourse about this, just settling into his role as the sort of like patron boomer at ambient music who says the same thing every time he releases a new album, which is like that it's like a rejection of corporate ambient, to the point where like now you're like, he has definitely not listened to an ambient album he didn't make in the last 10 years. Not that he's wrong, but like it's sort of one of his go-to takes, but I just can't help but be charmed by like the crotchety grandpa of it all. You know, it's nice to get one of those in a genre in like
I will say
mostly unproblematic way.
For most of the record, I have that feeling where I'm like, come on, man. But Monotony as an opening statement, I do think is a unique to the Tim Hecker discography level of like, how unsettling can I get this? Can I crank the Creeping Dread dial up as high as it'll go? And the answer is yes.
Yeah. And then Monotony too is just like this incredible centerpiece where he just sort of sits back and lets Colin Stetson go nuts.
Pro tip for our listeners at home: if you listen to this album for the first time while on ketamine, you will feel like you're dying. But like that could be fun, that sort of
I mean, ditto if you go to his live show on any kind of influence, it feels like you're suffocating and the walls are closing in on you.
Yeah. Whenever you hear like electronic producers talking high and mighty about like music or like sound waves as a physical presence, Tim Hecker shows are one of the very few experiences that like prove that thesis statement.
To actually echo something else Alexis said, Tim Hecker is like one of the loudest fucking live acts you've ever seen, just because those like bass elements are just all enveloping. It feels like you're basically just engulfed in that sound.
Yeah.
I also love that we're at the point with Tim Hecker at this point where even though he is doing the same press release every time, that like the he's like, all right, this is the track list. There's a song called Winter Cop and Living in Bottled Water, and we're just like, let's fucking go, baby. It's like me with Radiohead. Like
some of his best track titles in a while on this album.
Pulse Depression. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Total garbage. The run of Monotony, Pulse Depression, Anxiety, and Sense Suppression is like,
that's
some titles. Yeah.
Lily, I'm assuming the answer to this is no. Have you heard the Colin Stetson solo album that came out this year?
I forgot that happened.
I am just discovering there was one.
Literally, like,
came out like last month or like May. It's apparently very good. I didn't get around to it in my catch up end of year, but like because it's an hour and 10 minutes long. But I've saved it and I'm planning to go back to it. I was curious.
He's doing the fifth wave emo. Only the first word of the title is capitalized thing. That's cute.
Also, it looks like the cover of the Glass Beach record. What the fuck?
Yeah, I was gonna make a Glass Beach joke.
This can't fit. This album cover cannot fit the vibes of the album. I don't buy it. But the Tim Hecker album cover does fit the vibes of the album. Yes. I would say it's probably my favorite Tim release since Love Streams. I would say it's very much operating in that kind of mode where I like the last two were like they're very experimental, and I don't mind Tim getting experimental with it, but I like it when those were like, hey, I have this collective of musicians, and this is just Tim kind of like back on his own again, like, all right, back on my own, we're gonna just fuckify whatever I have up on deck, we're gonna fuckify it, we're gonna make it great, we're gonna put it through the Tim Hecker filter, and it's gonna be great. Like, I think this is a record. I need to go back and listen to it more.
But on my conversation, I finally watched Infinity Pool for the first time very recently, and I would like to rank Tim Hecker's score for that movie 8 out of 10, and I would like to thank Alexander Skarsgård's dick coming on screen 10 out of 10.
Thank you, weird freak Alexander Skarsgård. Anything else on Tim Hecker, Willie?
No, it's pretty cut and dry. Tim Hecker's in the state now where you can say it's another one, both as a compliment and as an insult. But I feel that it's a strong compliment in this case.
Oh yeah.
There we go. All right, Jackie, you're number 8, and Rose, this is also your number 10.
Hell yes. This is a late breaking entry to my list, the latest breaking, but I feel very confident that it will hang around at the very least toward the top of my end of year list, because I haven't stopped listening to it basically since I stumbled across it. The album is called Spirit World Tour. The band is called Sword 2. You've heard of a sword, the thing a sword? 2.
It's the Peggle 2, Jim. What can we say? It's just,
Exactly, yes. If you've never seen the gif of the guy jumping up and throwing a 2 up in the air, then it cuts to a big screen that has a 2 on it. That's what's happening.
It's just, like, you gotta shout out Peggle 2 guy, because he was really giving it his all that day.
There are like 7 GIFs that you should ever use on the internet, and they are as follows. It's the Drake clapping guy. It's the Ariana Grande and What About It. A couple others. We don't have to go through the list. Anyways, Spirit World Tour. This album is really, really, really fucking good. The obvious comparisons that are just like immediate and recency bias is Spirit of the Beehive, Feeble Little Horse, etc. It's in that bag of artists that are in various different ways trying to recontextualize or like redefine kind of psychedelic music in a post Tame Impala universe. I see this like taking psych pop and making it more fuckified.
To jump off a little bit, like I see a lot more Alex G on this record than I was expecting. Like,
Oh, I mean, but that's just anyone who makes indie rock that's like under
Yes,
the
but
age
like
of
this one
24
specifically,
at
it
this
feels
point.
so indebted to that in a
yeah.
weird way. Like specifically, like House of Sugar era, like the really kind of downcast, like going for weird noises that don't necessarily work for something melodic, but still kind of do it anyway, like just by force of will. And then just also the general genre hopping attitude that seems to be really predominant, and this is just
It does have a very Alex G structure where there is a defined section of the record where it goes into this experimental mode. And I know that's the whole thing I've complained about with Alex G on this podcast many times. However, I like it when they do.
Yeah, no, like I just think
Um,
this is a really, really interesting. Like I picked up on their EP like last year because they were on a comp. I can't remember the name of the comp right now, but it was that one that like had all those fucking shoegaze and like. Yeah, Between Two Gardens. That was just a really good comp, and I heard them and I was immediately like, what the fuck is this? Because just like, they were so immediately different from everyone else on there that I think, like, it works to their benefit. Like, this is like the only fucking Atlanta band right now that seems to be doing anything of this ilk really loudly and interestingly. And so it's just, a real anomaly to see something like this pop up rather than like, oh, it's another Philly group.
Yeah. And I think that the thing that I really like most about this record is that it's like the Feeble Little Horse record in that it has all of these little ideas and textures and things like that, but there's real songcraft here. And I think, as Matty and I have talked about with that last Spirit of the Beehive record, Entertainment Death, which is the record that this record reminds me the most of, I think the big difference is it's not that Entertainment Death doesn't have like elements of pop music and like bits of ear candy, but like those bits are so much more marred, and you have to really like. It's not a record that really works on like in a playlist format because none of the songs hit as hard as they do if unless you're like listening to the whole record as like a piece. Versus with this band, it works so well as a record because it's short and the flow is really great, but also there are songs like Damage and Silver that just like you could imagine this song playing live and them going over really fucking well. And they have hooks on every single song, even songs like 912 and Crystal that get really freaky with it. Like they're still trying to give you something to hold on to that even is different than like those Alex G records where Alex G is like Alex G didn't want to admit that he was a pop artist until very recently, and I think these people are a little more self-conscious about that in a way that really works for them. And I think the best songs in this record, like Damage and Mirror, are the ones that are able to have such a command of that, but then jump into really creative other stuff at the drop of a hat. I also just want to shout out the way that, like, I think they use acoustic guitars so cool on this record because, and I think that's kind of an Alex G thing. It's like they're contrasting these really synthetic sounds and like hard synthetic kick drums with like analog instrumentation that they've made sound weird and fucked up. Like the acoustic guitars that like hit super hard and like sharp on this record are just like really neat. I really like it. Yeah, good record.
Yeah, what I need to return to, but Silver, I want to highlight Silver. Like it's the best Alex G song Alex G has not made.
I can't believe
that
that's
I've
the
heard
first song I've ever heard use "I Can Fix Her." That's it's a. I'm like, how did that not make it into a song before?
There's got to be something on Bandcamp, but for our money,
I'm sure.
Yeah. Well then, so my number 7 is on someone else's list, so we'll skip over me and we'll bring it back to Rose. Rose, what was your number 7?
I thought it wasn't gonna hit it like out of the park. This is on me entirely, but Squid, dude, Squid. Like
let's fucking go.
I had like for a long time been like, well, all the guys in like the British post punk scene. I don't know, like I thought their last one was okay. I kind of soured on it a little over time, but like this one, just immediately, I was just like, oh, they're doing something so radically different from both themselves and every other band. I'm just immediately like jazzed about it, and like the influences are shining through so clear, and they are in my bullshit zone. So I have to shout out "Oh Monolith" by Squid because, good lord, man, it has been a while since I've heard a record that like makes me go like, Oh yeah, I'm really feeling the magma influence on this one. Like, it's just this bizarre little, like, very proggy kind of just, like, nodding through rhythms in a way that I just find really, really compelling. They got hooks, very Radioheady. Everyone who talks about this record is going to talk about how Radioheady the guitars are, but, like, nobody's going to talk about how, like, oh yeah, this is like the first time in a while I feel like a British band has been so directly indebted to like middle era Pink Floyd that it's like actually kind of distracting. Like,
no, you're right. Yeah,
especially
it's
like
very metal.
Adam Hart Mother era, like that one. Like I just had a moment where they like brought out this huge choir or whatever on one of the songs. I was just like, dude, I can't believe nobody has done a sound like this in so long. And it's just a really good like zone out and just listen to all of it at once kind of record. It's just got these really like it's tight. That's something I really appreciate. Is they're like, okay, no bullshit, 8 songs. They're all like 5 minutes each.
Yeah,
that's all you need.
I think that's the thing that saves it, because it is such a diversion record from their sound, and I think it even. I don't think that this is what they're going to sound like for the rest of their career, because they've been very open. They've been very open about the process of this record and how so much of this record was crafted when they were playing socially distanced like outdoor shows. And so that's why the record doesn't have any of the like we're a band that plays punk shows that people dance.
Yeah, and I just want to shout out like, something that I didn't notice until I pulled up the Wikipedia, or not the Wikipedia, the Bandcamp page just now. They tagged this crowd pop, so they know exactly what they're doing. Just calling something crowd pop, like, that's not a term that should exist.
Yeah, this is an album that like kind of resold me on Squid as somebody who thought that the last album was fine but wasn't really my thing, which is that if you just meld enough like prog and krautrock influences together, it just go full on the freak shit. It just becomes very fun to listen to.
Good dang time. And you know, me and Hideo Kojima, we're both all in on Squid right now. I just want to say we're both me and close personal friend of the pod.
Will they scan Squid?
I really like this record. I might be the rare person that, while I really like it as a direction and as a new piece in their growing discography, I do kind of miss some of the stuff I got from Bright Green Field, or like there I think like it grew on me over repeat listens. If you like the first record, it's kind of impossible for this record to not feel like a little bit of a come down, just because it is a come down in tone. So, like, if you didn't have expectations going into this, I can imagine it being, like, a much quicker uptake. But, like, I have gotten to the point where this record is pretty high on my album of the year list. And my one thing about the last song and the whole record in particular is, like, there are parts of this record that get, like, Adam West Batman show. And, like, that's either an insult or a compliment to you. And you have to find that out for yourself. It gets, like, very silly, but also very, like, I don't know, deep and interesting and cool. I don't know. I like it.
Yeah. All right.
Good band.
Anything else, Rose? Or are we ready to keep
wrapped,
moving?
you know, just like go listen to this if you want to be like me and just like sit down and have some weed and just enjoy yourself. That's all you need sometimes.
There we go. All right, Natalie, you're number 7.
Yeah, number 7, it's Young Fathers, it's heavy, they're back again. I feel like kind of similar to the Tim Hecker album, this is like one of those albums where if you've listened to them like at all in like the past couple albums that they've thrown out, you kind of get a sense of where they're going. They've been like refining their like group dynamics in a way where they're melding all these like pop influences with these kinds of just really interesting like world beats and like hip hop influences, and they've really kind of perfected their ability to make like really strong pop songs on this record in a way that I thought their last album Cocoa Sugar was also kind of them pushing into that direction. But it's just short and simple, 10 perfect like really short pop songs. A lot of them just kind of run the gamut of these like really great vocal trade-offs where they're just like throwing hook to verse to verse to verse to hook. It's their dynamics have never been tighter. There's some like cool little experimentation on here. There's some like almost kind of like chopped up vocal sample shit on Shoot Me Down that's really cool. There's a like basically like found recording sample that runs throughout Ululation, which basically doesn't have any of their vocal presences whatsoever. But yeah, they've just got like nothing but bangers here, and they've done it again. I don't really know what else to do. Like it's literally like Here Lies Music. They've done it again. Like that's all I got to say about this.
That's the same thoughts I have too. I was about to mention the exact same citation because I feel like we all have the same dumb reference language mapped to our brains at this point.
We all have the same brain, yeah.
And just on just like I was surprised by just how like get up and go the whole attitude of the thing was. Like from the moment you hit the first song, Rice, you're just like, oh yeah, they really came in here with like the hits. They were just like only bangers, and it really works in their favor in a way that I think is like very, very interesting. You know, like
yeah, it's one of their best flows in any album to date, because you've got like basically like Off to the Races early stretch, and then like kind of slowing it down in the middle, and then like the last stretch is just like nothing but these like really great like breakneck final sprints into like Be Your Lady, which is I've always said that like Young Fathers are really good at album openers and album closers, and like Be Your Lady is it's such a cool little thing where they're working with this like bifurcated structure in a really cool way, where it starts out this very kind of subdued reflective thing, and then all of a sudden like one of them shouts and it just kind of explodes into this like big chaotic like party atmosphere. It's a really joyous experience. You could like feel the kind of contagious energy that went into the recording of this in a way that
I think the trade-offs really especially are just like so much fun when you can really feel them like just getting into it and just like digging in their zones. Like I especially like my favorite one on here is a drum, where just like every time one of them hands off to a new section, it's just like, oh my god, this is even better than the last one.
Yeah, great drum sounds, percussion sounds throughout, which has always been their strong suit. But yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say. It's short, it's sweet. If you want like a really fun little like dance experience of just these like really great like crafted little Scotch pop songs from these three little like freaks, just go for it. It's very fun.
Yeah. All right. Lily, your number 7.
Yeah, my number 7 is To Spring Hide Its Joy by one Callie Malone. Now, we all know Callie Malone, okay? Last summer, we lit a torch, and that torch got smoked right to the top of our Album of the Year list, during which one of us may or may not have delivered a slightly unhinged monologue about the merits of Living Torch within a state of like fatigue-induced delirium. That may or may not have happened.
You're in a call with the person that made the Pistol Manifesto, so I feel like
it's really funny that like Lily's version of the Pistol Manifesto is a like very sincere ode to like unplugging yourself and living a healthier, more balanced lifestyle that like moved me very greatly, and mine is like, dude, Isaac Brock made this song called Pistol. Like, I think it's very telling of our energy as a whole that that's your unhinged.
Listen, we were feeling very differently between those 2 years. A lot happened.
The Lily and Jackie roller coasters up and down to then end up at the same place where at the same time we are both so fucking back is like the story of 2023.
Yeah, for sure. So very quickly, Callie Malone is back with a new, very generous album, and she has got Stephen O'Malley of Sun O and violinist Lucy Railton along with her, playing as a trio together. And I think I will talk about this album in terms of the 3 questions I, as the podcast's resident Callie Malone whisperer, get asked about it, which is, what is this? How do I listen to it? And why is it 5 hours long? Not made particularly clear in any of the packaging.
I'm one of the people that asked those questions.
Yes, I'm going to relitigate this in public for you so that everyone else can also know. And these are also very good questions because these are things I, as like someone who went through the modern classical music school ringer, like took for granted. So what's happening on To Spring Hide Its Joy is that this is a set of, to be honest, I'm not sure, at least 2 and at most 5 different performances of the same semi-improvised score. This is effectively
every time
a live in studio record, right? So like these are like single recordings of them playing together live. okay, maybe it's time to like take a music school sidebar and define what a semi-improvised score is. Essentially what that is in avant-garde music is it is a score where the sort of like major sort of like tonal or harmonic points, or however the composer has structured it, those are mapped out in clear, but the precise ways that you like arrive at them together as a unit or not, essentially everyone is up to, like, it's up to everyone to sort of chart their own course as an instrumentalist through what is happening, but also everyone has to like work in tandem to get to the same, to those
so this
same,
is just
like,
jam
major
band
anchor
for
points.
nerds. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
yeah, pretty much. I'm not even offended by that comparison. It's true. That's the accessible analogy that I could not find. And so, yeah, Callie Malone wrote the score, I believe, as she stated in a press release, like in the very early days of the pandemic. And this trio recorded themselves playing it a bunch and then put those recordings on a CD/vinyl/digital package, each of which like contains various versions.
The problem that would lose me was that, like, the way you phrase it as being, I think, between 2 and 7 versions made me think that it was like this, like, who knows what is contained within that mystery box. Like, I black out every time I listen to it. Like, it made it feel
Callie Malone's coming in here like, I got 7 versions.
I believe again, minimum 2, maximum 5. I still, to be honest, have not been able to like detect what exactly the overlap is. But when you get like the standard digital release, you're getting a combination of the CD and vinyl versions, which is, let's just say 5 different performances of the same score, but you know, they're each, it's like a different take. So each performance is different in its way, even though it's all sort of like revolving around the same thing. And it's pretty wonderful, in my opinion. I think Callie Malone, like, with this, is just very quickly proving herself to have one of like the finest ears in the music game when it comes to these like extreme microtonal intricacies, and the way in which she arranges her scores just allows for these like amazing, here's another incredibly pretentious thing I could say, is that like listening to Callie Malone is like introvert jazz, where it's not even you're listening for the notes they don't play, you're listening for what is happening inside the notes they are playing. And she is able to just mine like enormous emotional and textural complexity out of that. And I think like beyond that, I'll say at the very least, like a good little like microcosm of what my relationship with this record this year has been, is that like I do not really, and this also I think is what is throwing a lot of people, is that like Living Torch, you know, as we all know, was a bop. It was a very discrete, like point A to point B. You were at the start of Living Torch and you were at the end of Living Torch. To Spring Hide Its Joy does not really have that trajectory, or if it does, it's like buried to a point where you can just sort of like gloss over it. And so I don't really listen to this record as like a front to back record. I just sort of treat it as this like space that I can walk into and occupy in order to like calm myself or center myself in whatever way I need to for a while. So like when I was, this is a sentence I get to say now, when I was filming my TV show earlier this year, like my coping mechanism for like set stress was in between takes, I would just throw the noise canceling headphones back on and like pick up wherever I had left off in The Spring Hide Its Joy at that like particular day. Like I would just run it on a loop for pretty much like the entire duration of that shoot. So the nice thing about it is you can either do that, or you can like pick one of the versions to listen to at a time, or, you know, one of the like sub tracks of a version to listen to at a time. And you can pretty much get equal emotional and musical value out of it, no matter what you do with that. So I know it seems intimidating, but just give one of the 20-minute ones a try.
Again, Lily, you're not helping your case here. I hear like, oh yeah, there's like 7 versions of this thing, and like you can listen to all of them, and like they're semi-improvised, you know, and like you can choose your favorite, you can pop in or out. It's all about like the stuff you hear in the notes. I'm just like, this is jam band. This is just jam band.
I don't deny this. I don't deny
but
that.
Anyway, I want to add one more thought before I stop talking, which is and we all know that spring doesn't hide its joy. What this record presupposes is, what if it did?
There are a lot of question album titles this year, which I was going to bring up.
There are, especially
We'll
on my
get to
10, which is very funny. The two genders of title on my top 10 list are one word and a very long question.
I'm sorry, before we move on, I am still reeling from Lily calling Living Torch a bop, because even though you are correct in the metaphor you were using, there is no greater indication of the difference in our attention spans than you referring to Living Torch as a bop. All right, let's move
Listen,
on.
you were the one who referred to Living Torch 2 doing roundhouse kicks on your face. Like,
I love
Living
that
Torch
record.
can hold its own in the pit.
I love that record. I think that record manages to breeze by. I'm just saying, it is a 33-minute piece where nothing happens, and most of the time I listen to like music with girl talk levels of like instant gratification. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, but let's be very clear.
It's a different
nothing
gear
is
I
like
have to switch into.
the nothing that Kelly Malone is doing is like Seinfeld style nothing, where you're like, oh yeah, there's a lot in there.
Yeah, now we're talking.
Exactly.
I need to. We'll do this in chat, but I need to have the Seinfeld's core 4 talking about Callie Malone as like a bit. We need to let's relitigate this somewhere.
That's a good bit.
I will
I'm
draft
just
that
like-
before my next record comes around.
I think it just says something about me spiritually that like I hear Lily lovingly talking about this semi-improvised score, and I just go, that's jam bands and Seinfeld.
I mean, it's the Leo meme. It's like me when people tell me things aren't shoegaze, and I'm like, but it is though.
Well then, Jackie, your number 7 is on someone else's list. We'll come back to it. So on to number 6. My number 6 is the debut album from Superviolet, Infinite Spring. I came to this album completely blind. I'd never listened to the sidekicks. No idea, just heard, hey, this record is good. It's got some kind of alt country-ish sort of, folksy vibes. I'm like, okay, I'll give this a shot. And it's really damn good. They have been, the Pine Grove has been relitigated because they went viral on TikTok. And it was nice to remind myself,
can we pause the episode real quick? Just like, can we all do the Pine Grove shuffle? I feel like we need to really.
No, we're not.
What the fuck
I would.
It's
I'll explain.
Turn back now. No, don't poison her. Leave her be.
That was a
Beautiful.
rhetorical question, to be clear. I just was expressing my disgust, but also I actually don't know and I don't want to. Back to Matty's up.
I don't know what it is either. I just know the name exists, and I'm just like, I don't want to know any more than that.
Tiger went viral on TikTok. That's all you need to know. That one of their songs went viral. Anyways, Infinite Spring, Superviolet. Again, it's tough to like be articulate about this album because it's just really damn good emotional songwriting. It's just a fucking great record. Angels on the Ground, incredible intro, fucking title track, Lock It, Dream Dating, Big Song, Birds Don't Cry. Just like, these are all like songs that feel very, very vital and very emotional, and they just get me. They just get me in the heartstrings, and it's really damn good. I need to listen to some sidekicks because apparently I really missed out on some good ass shit.
Also,
Jeff Rosenstock's favorite band.
Yeah, I mean, also Steve, noted ex Bomb the Music Industry member. So
there you go.
But no, I listened to this when I was in my crunch. I didn't listen to it enough for it to breach my 10, but it's like, I think in my 20, and it was when you're like crunching a bunch of things, sometimes when you get a quick album pitch, it kind of just like rolls right off you and you're like, I mean, I guess I would like this. But when I like threw this on, it's got guitars, it's got hooks, it's got key changes. It's like all over the place with its songwriting in a way that like keeps things like really exciting, and it really kind of like keeps the momentum going in like really perpetually interesting ways that I find really compelling, and makes it kind of more than just like whatever sort of like rote entry into its given fields or genres would be.
Jumping off of that point, I do want to shout out my one record that's my 11 that I was like killing myself over. The Black Belt Eagle Scout album is my version of that this year, where because it is in a lane of stuff, there's just a lot of stuff that exists that when you write it out on paper sounds like that. So when people are like, oh, it's an indie rock record that's just like really good and it's like got this great concept and just really good like songwriting and sound, and it's like, yeah, whatever, I'm sure it's great. And then I put it on and I'm like, wait, fuck, this is great? Why didn't no one tell me? And people were telling me. My friend JL basically had to force me to listen to it, but the Black Belt Eagle Scout album is that version of that for me this year, and could very easily sneak into my 10. It's pretty much perfect.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It's a comeback for her. Like, I thought her last one was just okay, but this is just like, yeah, she's back.
Oh yeah.
That's all I gotta say. Dudes rock. This is
Dudes rock.
this is probably this is my Dudes rock album of the year so far. If you got to pick one. But Rose, what is your number 6?
Oh, buddy, let me tell you, I was not expecting to be with the critical consensus on this one, but really, Livy Girl in the Half, Livy Girl in the Half Pearl, just super good R&B record that just like fully knocked it out of the park. Her last one that I'm forgetting the title of because it's one of those really long ones. I'm just like, oh yeah, look it up. Like, yeah, her last one from I believe it was 2020. I want to say like. It was like sometime like early pandemic. Couldn't wait to tell you. Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting record. It was a very like sample heavy kind of R&B thing, but it felt like it was going for something simultaneously like throwback and also just like really plugged into psychedelia in a weird way. Just like very fun, but just also messy. And I'm just like, she's gonna make something good, right? Like she's gonna make something really good. And then she made this. And I was just like, yep, she really did. This thing is just so aesthetically all over the place. It's going for like, you know, just a fusion of R&B, psychedelia, like break beats, all these just little sound flourishes that just make me go like, I can't believe you thought this was a good idea and that it worked. Cause it shouldn't. Like, functionally on paper, this record should be just a complete disaster, but every single pivot it makes, I'm just like, you figured it out. You figured out the exact way to do this. And it's wild, dude. It's just a really wild record to hear. Just like, it's on my usual shit of like, well, I like anything that goes kind of post-genre, and this very much feels like it's going for post-genre for better or worse. It's just, yeah.
I really love this record, and this is a similar to what I just said, where like I saw this on critics list all year long, and then as I was checking it out like a couple weeks ago, I was like, but surely it's not as good as everyone. But no, it is. It is as good as everyone says it is. And in particular, there's a moment that happens as Ghost, which is an incredible song, transitions into Find Out, and you hear the sample of Method Man and Redman's Da Rockweiler, and I lost my fucking mind. I was like, why are we not voting this woman president immediately? Like, I love this record a whole lot. It's toward the top of my list this year, and I think it pairs nicely with the Kalela record. They're like a similar sort of style of R&B, but Kalela is much more like, I'm going to make this really just refined kind of classy thing, and this is much more like trans women style of like throwing, I'm just gonna fucking do this, you watch me do it attitude, you know?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's what I've liked about Liv's stuff since the last record, like in 2020. Like I heard that, I was just like, this is doing so many things at once. It doesn't do all of them well, but like it does them so interestingly that I can't help but be like, you kind of have it. And this one, like, it just refines the songs to such a place where I'm just like, yes, this is perfect. And like, you know, like she does the insane flex of like just throwing in like almost at the exact middle point of the record Wild Animals, which is just like the most straightforward song you could possibly write for this thing, and it's just near perfect. You're like, oh, so you can like yeah, just you think like, oh, can she really do chops outside of, you know, like the weird experimental stuff? And it's like, yes, she can. She can do everything.
No, yeah, the ideas aren't to cover up the lack of real deal ability. It's like the cliche of like, you need to know the rules in order to break the rules so that you can have like awareness of what rules you're choosing to break and not break.
Yeah. I don't have much to say about this. I did really like this when I was doing my like crunch catch up for mid-year. But I do just want to say I said this in chat, but some of the I think it's very easy for people to shorthand certain things as like vibe records, in the sense that like they cultivate a specific kind of like atmosphere or mood, and like this is one of the rare times where like somebody made a vibe record but also remembered to make the songs good.
Yeah, no, for the most part, I think my lean this year and stuff I've liked has been vibes first records rather than like going for the songs, but like all of these examples I list, like, you know, this and the Squid and the Sword 2 and a couple others I'm gonna get to, like they're cultivating the vibes in a manner where I'm like, yes, I don't need you to necessarily have songs I remember first and foremost, but you will eventually. I will remember them just by sheer force of like I keep coming back to this because I'm just like, what is going on here, dude? Like I just feel the need to like pick the bones clean on this one, and I'm not going to sample snitch, but there's a very very funny sample on one of these songs that just made me go like, yeah, dude, okay, you're legit. Like the producers on here and her work are both just like working so beautifully in tandem towards this just absurd vibe locus that's just like, we've done it. We've reached the vibe singularity, and it's good.
There we go. All right, Natalie, you're number 6.
Yeah, this one kind of surprised me because I have liked songs and portions of albums from this artist before in the past, but she's never made something that I've like really clicked with until now. It's art pop artist Megabog with her latest The End of Everything. She's been in a weird sort of situation where like ever since I saw her like open up for Destroyer like ages ago, I was like taken by her sound and her very sort of idiosyncratic like vocal affect that she puts on in her music. But like other than like Happy Together, like the other couple albums that have come after that, they've either like kind of bounced off of me, or like in the case of like Dolphine, it starts out really strong and it kind of crumbles when it has to like make a complete album. And so I was like really pleased that this one really kind of pares down the approach and has a very interesting kind of progression in a way that like really kind of calls to me and the kind of bullshit that I tend to love. It's like just 8 songs, just nice, compact, very sort of like direct flow. Starts with this like very kind of intentional artifice. I know this is reductive, but almost kind of like 80s Kate Bushish vibe, where she's taking her art pop sounds and using these very kind of like thin artificial synths in ways that make the like different affects of her voice and her lyricism stand out even more. But like for me, the record really comes together when it hits its midpoint, where it starts introducing all of these elements of like brass instrumentation and lyricism directly calling to environmental collapse. Once it really like hits this track in the middle, All and Everything, where it's basically this like slow death march basically to the world's cataclysm, where she ends the song by just like letting out this like really just sharp screech that just tears the entire thing down. It like just goes so frenetic and wild, and her presence across this album is probably her like Aaron Burgie's like best vocal performance across it. I don't really have like too much to say. It's a really great like short sweet album about how like the fucked up state of the world like seeps into our interpersonal lives, and has some really interesting variety across it. So yeah, that's all I got.
I've been trying to just hold myself from saying, damn, lady's naked on this album cover, because I had never looked at this album cover before. But damn.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I was looking politely from the moment that the album cover was unveiled to me in a press release, and I was like, I see that is a choice, but it does kind of make sense, because the album in a lot of ways is a very emotionally raw at times, like unbearing. So like it starts with a lot of like almost kind of wry deadpan like weird, almost kind of like love breakup songs in a lot of regards. But like she's got like this like very interesting sense of humor. Like in The Clown, she starts by singing off about how like she's scaring off men because she keeps talking about beheading people, which is like a great lyric. And yeah, like later on, it's kind of like that kind of falls by the wayside as all of these lyrics about like just the destruction of the world kind of take over in its place. There's a very sort of deliberate flow to it that I think a lot of her previous albums were kind of lacking. There's, I think, a lot of curation and thought being put into the structure of this that are really kind of special. And yeah, it makes me excited that this late into her career, she's kind of figuring out how to like really craft a like great, just like right over the plate album. And I hope she follows this kind of lead going forward.
I just wanted on the record that Matty went to look up the album cover on Spotify.
Well,
in
yeah.
the middle of that.
Well, yeah. Well, again, big boobs.
I don't mean to air you out.
Spotify.
I would have done the same if you haven't gotten to it.
It's just like again,
worth noting.
In several ways, Megabog saw Lord Solar Power and said, "You fool, you tiny baby, watch this."
I'm still mad about her jeans. I didn't want to bring it up, but just jeans. Just come on.
Rose personally that day on set was like, "Lord, you gotta wear those jeans," and she just ignored.
Wear the jeans. Listen, I didn't want to mention this, but I was the creative director on that album cover. I was really upset when she ditched my jeans.
No, the photo is Lord running away from you pantsless as you try to put jeans on her.
She's
not
the
wearing
camera
pants
just
and
managed
she's
to
running
snap
down the
her at
beach.
just that moment.
You just out of frame are running, holding a pair of pants. Like, no, Lord, come back.
The jeans.
Okay, let's move on.
Oh,
Jesus
Jesus.
Christ,
Let's
it's
move on.
running late.
Okay.
We haven't gotten even
Lily's
halfway yet. Fuck.
Yeah, this might be a two-parter episode, everybody. Lily's number 6 is we're talking about it later on, so we're gonna skip over onto Jackie. Jackie, your number 6 favorite album of the year so far.
I will keep this brief because I profiled this person for StereoGum.com. This is the new Tanuki-chan record. It's called Gizmo. Gizmo is really, really, really good. Similar to Death Crash, Gizmo, although it came with a much longer wait. This is like 4 years after her last record. But this record is like so to the detail perfect that I'll allow it. If this is how long it takes, good, because this is just a record that has zero fat on it. And there are days when I'm like, these other records in my 5 maybe mean more to me on an emotional level, but Gizmo is just kind of perfect. It's just like kind of the platonic ideal of what indie rock music should sound like to me in 2023. It's really good. Toru Ima's production, great as always. But I really like my main thing about the music on this record is that like the last record used a lot of drum machines, and this uses a lot of live drums, and it just does so much to give this record more juice to it, which is really helpful because she has this very like kind of sedate voice that works really well for the songs she writes. But like, I think this record is just like, oh fuck, I didn't even realize her music was missing this before, but now I'm not going to be able to go back, sort of thing. Anyways, great record. Love me some Gizmo. Like You, maybe my song of the year. Just like a perfect song that every time the little do drop into the guitar riff, like every single time it starts, I just smile every single time. It's so good. Yeah, I also forget that this is a this year record because I heard it in October of last year. But anyways, Gizmo, good.
There we go. All right, on to my number 5, which is on 3 of ours list. The new Jim Legacy record, HNPM. I can't say the actual name of the album. HNPM. This is one that I know, Jackie, you put me on alert to this record, and I listened to it at the time when it came out, and I was like, oh, okay. I think it was in the office and sort of just breezed past me, but then I went back to it about a month ago, and I just couldn't stop listening to it. It is just this like,
it's addicting is the best.
It's a very addictive listen. It's just this like super intriguing mix of like Afrobeat and Midwest emo and Jersey club and kind of amalgamating like all these genres. Like listening to this album is like kind of scrolling through someone's TikTok feed, but in like and I say that as a compliment, just like
non-derogatory.
a
Yeah.
non-derogatory, like a really well curated like TikTok feed of sounds. The way he's able to mesh all this stuff together is kind of a miracle. That it not only works, but it's just also like really fucking good. I mean, obviously DJ, ITEL, just so many great songs on this record.
Light It? Are you kidding me? Oh my
Yeah.
god! Oh, and we're not even talking about sample of the year, Miley's Rhythm. Are you fucking kidding? Just like the first time I heard that, I assumed that would, like, you see the song title and it's a real dead dove do not eat situation. You're like, surely it's not it's that, but maybe it's a cover or a whatever, and then you fucking hear Miley Cyrus as not even Miley Cyrus. Like, if it was a Miley Cyrus the Climb sample or whatever, it'd be like, that's cute. To sample Hannah Montana is just the most baller shit of all time.
Yeah, this really does feel in a lot of ways like a very sort of like of the moment, like young person's reinvention of what like pop music can be in terms of how it takes all those like found samples. There's like some really great like Nigerian pop station like idents like happening in some of these songs too that are just really like add so much like extra character dimension. Totally. I want to echo Matty in that like this is one that I got to in my crunch finally because I had been putting it off for ages, and like I think partially similar like ADHD thing to like Jackie. It's like you give me an album this short that is like constantly so gripping with each new track idea and like so many just like 2-minute tracks, it's gonna like fucking grip me like nothing else. And the ways that like Jim is like using these like very specific kind of like almost kind of quavering like vocal deliveries is just, it makes the songs both like absolute bangers but also like really deeply affecting and moving. Like there's a very clear like emotional heft to pretty much everything on here, even if you can't necessarily name what that emotion is on the first listen through.
And if you read anything about this guy and like the story of this, like he made this entire record living on friends' couches. Like this, it's a very the album title is very
the H is homeless.
Yes, exactly. Like, and like a lot of this record, but like it has that quality of like a Jersey Club edit of a song where like a sad song is being paired with a big upbeat beat, but the point is not to be like, isn't this silly or whatever. Like it's a completely different tonality, and I think the thing that really drives that is his vocals and then the guitar that's all over this record. And I think that was the thing that stood out about DJ. And the thing that everyone said is like he's taking Jersey Club and drill beats, and then he's doing like American football shit on top of it. And like I think especially every time I hear Call Your Dad, I'm like, this is a John Frusciante Red Hot Chili Peppers riff. That's what this is, like 100%. And like, but he's recontextualizing it in this way that doesn't at all feel like cynical. Like that's the thing I really like about post-internet music made by young people that are really genuinely creative, is that it doesn't feel like they're mashing up genres as a way to create this like thing that they can market. It's like this is just what their brain is. Like these things are just sort of like blurring together in their brain, and so to them it just makes sense that like I can put all this stuff together.
Yeah, and it's seeing all these like little overlaps for how certain things can fill the negative space of like one sound, but also like really build up the kind of like complicated emotional like aura that it's going for on the whole.
Also, the shortness of the songs doesn't feel like it's a TikTok thing or like a cynical thing, like at all. Like it is just like he can write a pop song that feels satisfying and is 2 minutes long and is less than 2 minutes long. Like he's just that good of a pop songwriter. Like ITEL is basically like, what if One Dance was like actually really good?
I'm about to write a brand new song about an ITEL.
That's what I said. Like, Jim Legacy wrote another song about a One Dance. He finally broke the spell. We have a second One Dance.
So again, he needed a 2 dance.
Rose, I don't know if you saw that. I did a tweet about how Drake has announced that he's releasing One Dance, 2 Dance, Red Dance, Blue Dance.
Yeah, this is a great record. I mean, it's my number 5. Natalie, it's your number 5, and then Jackie, it's your number 7.
It's the Tanuki-chan and Jim Legacy are in a similar spot where it's like I have stronger feelings about records above them, but I cannot stop listening to them, so they keep climbing up my list, you know?
Yeah. I feel like this might be a weird comparison. Like, it feels appropriate that this album comes out like 10 years after the Jai Paul leak.
Ooh.
I think that's a fair comparison. I mean,
Yeah.
we're both from London. I think that's part of it, but like, yeah.
Just like these two guys that just who've come out of essentially nowhere and making like very innovative pop music that I feel like is going to have like tons of ripple effects as like more and more people discover them.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's my number 5. That is I think that is the only one. Actually, well, there's another that's on 3 of our list. But that's one of our consensus ones so far. All right, so that is the end of part 1 of our 2023 album of the year so far episode. This recording was over 3.5 hours, so we gotta split this up into 2 parts. So for our Patreon supporters, come back Wednesday for part 2 as we go through the rest of our list, and for everybody else, come back Friday for the rest of the list. All right, hopefully you enjoyed the episode. We'll see you all very, very soon for part 2, just a few days. Bye-bye.
Turns around to me and screams out loud. I know what I saw. I know what I saw. Day by day, nights pass by. Still I cry. How could this be? What did you see? Him do this time that he hasn't done before. Knew for sure. I could change your stars. I was in all these we were young. I confess, but now something time. Cause you're still stuck in your.
You're still stuck in that old nigga. And I hear it. And you're gonna try to stop it.
She turns around to me and screams out loud. I know what I saw. Know what I saw. Day by day, nights pass by. Still I cry. I know